Hello and welcome. You're watching The Interview on France 24. My guest today is perhaps the world's greatest art detective, dubbed the Indiana Jones of the art world. Adolf Brand has spent his life tracking down some of the most important stolen masterpieces from Dalis to Picassos. He became famous in 2015 when he recovered two giant bronze statues that were among Hitler's favorites, a fascinating investigation he now recounts in his book Hitler's Horses, the incredible true story of the detective who infiltrated the Nazi underworld. Hello, Adolf Brand, and thank you for joining us from Amsterdam.
Hello, Valériane.
So your book is the true tale of your hunt for two horses, sculptures that once stood outside Adolf Hitler's office. How did it all start?
Well, it started a couple of years ago when a friend of mine, Michel van Rijn, received an email. And in this email was stated that an old family consisting of Nazis was trying to sell some statues, very important statues, and they asked a couple of millions for it. And attached to this email was a picture, a color picture, and on it the two famous Torak horses, and those horses were Hitler's favorite sculptures. They adorned the Reichschancellery. They were placed beneath his office there. So I recognized these statues and I thought, oh my God, because we all thought that these statues had been destroyed during the raid of Berlin in 1945. But here they were on a color picture with two people which were wearing modern clothes. So I thought, well, maybe they still exist.
As you were saying, everybody thought they had been destroyed more than 70 years ago. How did you manage to track them down?
Well, first we thought they were fakes, forgeries, because, as you said, everybody thought them to be destroyed. It turned out that Hitler had moved them. At the end of the war, he had moved them to a place in northern Germany. And the Russians confiscated them when they conquered Germany, and they placed them secretly on a Russian military base. So there they were standing in the 50s, 60s, and 70s, hidden away. And when the Berlin Wall collapsed, they managed to sell it to some people with apparently Nazi sympathy. So we found out that the horses were indeed the real ones. So then we started to track them down. And as they tried to sell these horses on the black market, I posed as a representative of an American buyer, which of course didn't exist. And I modeled him to J.R. Ewing from the soap opera Dalis from the 70s and 80s. So a Texan oil billionaire with a big head, a mean man, and I posed as his representative, as a possible buyer. So that's how it started.
And so during your investigation that lasted for 1 year and a half, you discovered that during the Cold War, the Stasi had started quite a profitable business of selling Nazi art to the West, often to former Nazis or neo-Nazis.
Yes, the Russians had confiscated a lot of Nazi art, and somewhere in the 70s, they discovered that in the West, there were people who wanted to collect them. So there was this secret trade, imagine, between communists and former Nazis who made secret deals to sell these pieces. And there was a big trade. And the Stasi, the former Secret Service, was involved in that.
How were the horses finally seized?
Well, we first had to go through the underbelly of this collector's world. We met old Nazis, the Stasi. I even encountered Gudrun Burwitz, which maiden name was Gudrun Himmler, the daughter of Heinrich Himmler. And all these people were involved. And I teamed up with the German police, and finally, after a couple of years, we managed to do some raids in Germany. 200 police officers were involved. And finally, we found them.
What happened to the horses and other Nazi artworks you retrieved? Where are they today?
Well, they are still under under court. The owners say we bought them legally from the Russians. The German state said they did not. So the German states want to have them back. But it's still a court case, but probably they will end up in a German museum, maybe next year, with all the other statues we found back, because we found back most of all these statues that were surrounding the Reichschancellery.
How much did you earn for this discovery?
Zero. It cost me a lot of money. You know, it's difficult when you find these pieces back, of which everybody thought they had been destroyed. Who can I send my invoice to, you know, to Merkel? So in the end, it costed me a lot of money, but it was worth it. It was a great adventure. It made headlines all over the world. And of course, now I've written a book about it. So I'm not complaining.
Yes, a fascinating story. And you have also helped Jewish families recover their stolen art during your career.
Yes, the Germans stole for thousands, millions of pieces of art from Jewish families. And, you know, we are 70 years after the war. And some people say, well, is it worth that they get their pieces back? But, you know, in all these 70, 75 years, these Jewish families never had the chance to get these pieces back. So I'm trying to help them. And we found pieces back in the Louvre, even in the collection of the Royal Dutch family. So it's still something I think it's worth searching for.
You have been dubbed the Indiana Jones of the art world. Do you compare yourself to Indiana Jones?
No, absolutely not. Indiana Jones is a cool guy. I don't even have a driver's license. I'm not walking around with guns. But maybe some of these adventures which I experienced, well, they have something like Indiana Jones. But that doesn't mean that I'm Indiana Jones, you know. I'm just a normal, simple guy from the Netherlands.
You've also helped recover other famous works of art. Can you tell us a bit about your other adventures?
Yeah, well, 2 years ago I recovered a Picasso, one of Picasso's own favorite paintings. He kept this painting until he died. It was stolen in France in 1999 from a yard of a sheikh. And it ended up in the underworld of the Netherlands, and I managed to track it down. Last year, I recovered the ring of Oscar Wilde, the famous Irish-English writer. It was stolen from Oxford like 20 years ago, and I recovered it in England. And, well, those are some of the cases that I solved. There is this Book of Havès, a very important Iranian poet, one of the oldest books of him from the 15th century. And it was stolen in Germany, and I recovered that one too in England. So I'm working on many cases. Some I succeed, and some are still waiting to be solved.
And what investigations are you currently working on? Can we expect some major discoveries in the future?
Oh yes, I do hope so. There are a lot of leads to, I say, 10 cases, but you know, with the current COVID situation, it's difficult for me to travel. But I'm very keen on solving a very big museum robbery in France. I have a good lead, and as soon as I'm able to travel, I will go there and try to recover it.
And we'll be looking for that. Have you already been in dangerous situations or feared for your life?
Well, you must understand that the criminal art world is a very dangerous world. There are big gangsters involved, mafia is involved, even terrorist group like IS. So sometimes you get in dangerous situations. But I always say, if you know what you do, there is a chance you might survive. And until now, fingers crossed, I survived. But indeed, sometimes it can be dangerous, yes.
One last quick question. Aren't you sometimes tempted to keep some of these magnificent artworks you recover?
Every time. When I recovered this Picasso, it was worth 70 millions. I, of course, had to give it back to the rightful owners, but I placed it one night on my wall. And, well, it's difficult, you know. I have to give them back. It's my job. But I had the ring of Oscar Wilde for 2 weeks on my finger, and when I have to say goodbye, it's not easy, that's for sure.
Thank you very much, Arthur Brand, for being with us on France 24. And thank you all for watching. Do stay tuned for more news on our channel.
Fake news. Noun. False stories that appear to be news, spread on the internet or using other media. At France 24, our job is to provide you with information that's been verified. We check sources, we check facts, we sort what is true from what is fake.
At the France 24 Observers, we verify photos and videos circulating online. If they're fake, we let you know and tell you how we spotted them.
In Fact or Fake, we dig into viral stories around Europe to shake out the truth from the trash.
Every day, the Info Migrants team scours social networks to fight fake news about the reality of migration.
France 24, news based on facts.
Liberté, égalité, actualité.